Some popular game series had that one really popular game that many newcomers played while ignoring the ones that came before it. Examples for that are The Witcher 3, The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim and Fallout 3. But no game series did change more than the Persona series with the release of Persona 3. It went so far that the joke exists that Persona 3 is the first Persona game. Or another joke that Persona 1 and 2 are just fan games. Though these jokes are funny, it gives an impression that the games are not good. While fair, that Persona 3 onwards the series was way more accessible to newcomers, it doesn't mean that these games are bad by any means. Persona 1 in particular is one that is ignored or glanced over the most. But today let me tell you why you should respect this oldie. First things first, Persona 1 has 3 versions that we will look at. The PS1 game, Megami Ibon Roku Persona, Revelation Persona, and the PSP remake, Shin Megami Tensei Persona. Megami Ibon Roku Persona for the PS1 is the Japanese version and the original vision for the game. Revelations Persona was the overseas port, with a lot of changes that make it more accessible to Western audiences. It also has a major questline removed. Kinda, we will get to it later. The remake however is the restoration of the original vision and the questline I mentioned before. The thing is though that this version changed the soundtrack. The soundtrack in the original was smooth and atmospheric, while the new soundtrack is more upbeat to appeal more to the new fans that were introduced to the series with Persona 3. That means I will only look at Revelations Persona and Shin Megami Tensei Persona, so get out of here! The majority of my footage will come from the PSP version, because it's the better version to play, and it's closer to the original vision, so just a heads up. There are various differences between the two versions. One of these differences is where the game takes place. In the remake and the original PS1 version in Japan, the plot takes place in a fictional town called Mikage, while the town in Revelations Persona is a fictional town in America called Lunaway. Yes, the Western version changed the setting from Japan to America, which means that everything from the currency to the characters were completely localized. Instead of yen you earn dollars, instead of Japanese names you get Batman references, spell names and persona names were changed as well. At one point in the story a character will ask you a couple of questions, and if you answered one wrong and your party comments that you should probably redo the answer, do it! If you answer even one question wrong, you will get the bad ending. If you fight against a big teddy bear you are locked to the bad ending, and if you don't fight a boss then you are in the route of the true ending. It is really easy to mess up and even harder to notice because you still have a couple of hours of playtime before you see the result. So my tip is, just use a guide if you feel like it. No one will mind if you do. It's for your own benefit. The game starts with a philosophical idea of what is real and what is a dream. Once I dreamt I was a butterfly. I forgot myself and knew only my happiness as a butterfly. Soon I awoke and I was myself again. Did I dream that I was a butterfly? Or do I now dream that I am a man? Yet there is a distinction between myself and the butterfly. This is the transformation of the physical. Zhuangzi. Right after we see a group of teenagers gathering in an empty classroom. The protagonist. In the PSP version, he is known as the boy with the earring. He has no earring in the English version. In the PSP version, where he looks like the Japanese PS1 version, his name is Naoya Todo. The differences in appearances between the American and the Japanese version are that in the American version he has red hair with a hint of black, and also no earring. In the PSP version, he has an earring and he has black hair. His arcana is Emperor, his weapon of choice is the one-handed sword. You can use him in both routes. Mark. In the American version his name is Mark. In the Japanese version his name is Masao Inaba and his nickname is Mark, so it doesn't actually make a difference there. He is the character with the most differences between the two versions. In the American version he has black skin color, a yellow cap and no earring. While in the Japanese version he is Asian, so of course he has a lighter skin color. He has stripes under his eyes, a yellow hat and earrings. His arcana is the chariot. His weapon of choice is the axe. He can only be obtained in the SEBEC route of the game. The third character we will look at is Nanjo. In the American PS1 version his name is Nate Trinity. In the Japanese and PSP versions his name is Kei Nanjo. The differences between his appearances is that in the American version he has blonde hair and all other versions he has black hair. His arcana is the Hierophant. Weapon of choice is two-handed sword and he can be obtained in both routes. The next character we will look at is Ellie. In the American version her name is Ellen. In all other versions her name is Eriko Kirishima. In the American version she is blonde and is a bit more pale. In all other versions she has black hair with red highlights. Her arcana is Judgment. Her weapon of choice is rapier. Noteworthy things are that she is enthusiastic about everything occult. She can also be obtained in both routes. The next character we will look at is Braun. In the American version he is called Brad. In all other versions he is called Hidehiko Uesugi. He has no differences in appearances between the versions. His arcana is the Justice Arcana, his weapon of choice is the spear, and he can also be obtained in both routes. Yukino. Her American name is Yuki, and in all other versions she is called Yukino Mayuzumi. She also has no differences in her appearance in both versions. Her arcana is the Empress, her weapons of choice are the Razor Blades, she can only be obtained in the Snow Queen route. The last character we will look at for now is Ayase. Her American name is Alana, while in the other versions she is called Yuka Ayase. The only difference I saw from her appearance is that in the American version she seems to be a bit more pale. Her arcana is the Magician, weapon of choice is Whip, and she can also be obtained in both routes. When the game starts, Braun tells the group about something called the Persona game. Mark doesn't believe that it will work, so he bets that it won't happen. The group seems interested in trying it out, and you get asked who you bet on. Of course this is a Persona game, so you have the obligation to bet that it will work. After they perform the ritual, a little girl in white appears. Then Yukino, Mark, Nanjo and Naoya get struck by lightning one after another. The next scene you see looks like a dream sequence where a mysterious masked man, who calls himself Philemon, asks you for your name. You know about Naoya. No, get ready for Nick! After that he tells you that everyone has multiple personalities inside them, like masks you put on. He grants you the power of the persona. Before we continue, the definition of the persona is the aspect of your character you choose to present to others, which fits the mask example he talks about in this cutscene perfectly. And then he says his goodbyes. You wake up at the infirmary when his teacher, Miss Saeko, tells Naoya, Mark, Nanjo and Yukiko to go to the hospital for a checkup. They also agree that it's a good idea to visit their friend who was hospitalized for over a year due to some illness. This is the best time to talk about the soundtrack. Both of the PS1 games use the ambient, deep soundtracks to make you feel uncomfortable, as if anything could appear at any moment. It also had way more tracks in the game than the PSP remake. But wait, what's this? Persona 3 influence, baby! The PSP version has most of its soundtrack replaced by J-pop and is only around half the amount of the tracks from the original, which makes it almost impossible to replace the PSP soundtrack with the PS1 ones as a patch, so keep that in mind. You can now either directly go to the hospital or you can search through the school. If you decide to explore the school, head to the teacher's lounge. Talk to the teacher in the brown jacket. Then you need to go to room next to 2-6 where the first cutscene happened. When you step inside, you see a young man. He is Reiji. In the American version, his name is Chris. In all other versions, his name is Reiji Kido. The only differences in his appearance is that in the American version he is a bit more pale. He has two arcanas. One is the devil and the second is death. His weapon of choice are his fists. He can only be obtained in the SEBEC route. He goes away as fast as he is introduced. He is a weird character because he is a party member, but in order for him to join, you need to follow a very specific set of actions, which are really easy to miss and mess up. In this video I will go over the steps as they appear in order, because you can still choose not to get him if you want another party member. There are no downsides into following the steps, it just shows you more scenes. Also, if you didn't find him in this part of the game, you already lost your chance to get him. Just so you know with what you are dealing with here. The next step is right after meeting him, head into room 2-1 and speak with the boy next to Mark. He tells you about an abandoned factory. Once you leave the school, you see Nanjo's butler Yamaoka, or in the PS1 version, Alfred. Another thing I need to mention about Revelations Persona is that some characters are named after Batman characters, because later on you will see a couple called Bruce and Selina. Anyways, after the scene with Yamaoka, head immediately to the Joy District and go to the casino. Speak with the boy next to Mark, then head over to the abandoned factory to meet Reiji again. Now head into the Yin and Yang shop inside Joy Street and talk to the woman twice. Just as a disclaimer, it may be false what I tell you here, but only talk to the woman twice because I heard that if you talk more to her, Reiji will not join your party. This woman is Reiji's mother, so be sure to be nice to her. The first time you speak to her, answer yeah, and right after talk to her again and answer with sure. Now after doing all of this and getting shouted at by your party for being a dumbass who keeps accidentally almost leaving the city, you arrive at the Mikage hospital. From here you head into Maki's room and talk with her a bit. Maki. In the American version her name is Mary, while in all other versions she is called Maki Sonomura. Her differences in her appearance is that in the American version she has brown hair and is a bit more pale, while in all other versions she has black hair. Her arcana is the priestess, her weapon of choice is bow and arrow, she can only be obtained in the SEBEC route. It is not long before she experiences massive headaches and is forced to get into the emergency room. While you need to wait outside, there is a short earthquake and Mark rushes to the emergency room to see that the room doesn't exist anymore. You hear screams from the lobby and immediately head there to see zombies who struck down Yamaoka. Forced to defend yourself, you are thrust inside your first scripted fight. Everyone participating awaken their persona for the first time. Shortly after the battle, Yamaoka passes on and Nanjo is left devastated and understandably feels like he is alone in the world. Now your objective is escaping the hospital as soon as possible. This is the perfect time to talk about the gameplay. Most of the traversal is being done in the first person mode, where you traverse in corridors and get into random battles. When you see a door, you usually get into an isometric third person view, where you can talk with your party members and occasionally other NPCs. In every room, your party has something else to say, so talk to them. Additionally, you can pick up treasure boxes in these rooms, and you need to occasionally solve puzzles here to progress the story again. On the way to the exit, you will encounter a lot of random enemies, so let's talk about battles. What can you do? A lot actually. You can attack with your melee weapon or your gun, which we will get a bit later in the game. You can summon your persona, which is interesting in this game because it levels the more you use the personas instead of getting separate experience points after the battle like in later games of the series. Your persona also has a dedicated SP cost attached to them, so it doesn't matter if you use a simple Agi or Megadolaon. If your persona has both skills, you will use the same amount of SP for either of them. You can also check the stats of enemies and negotiate with them into joining the party, or just giving you items or money. But if you say 3 things that either make the demon mad or scared, then they will either attack you full force or flee. Everyone in your party is able to negotiate, and the moon phases in game also matter, so just use a guide. There are just way too many variables to be consistent at them. Battles are fought on the grid, so attacks and skills naturally have places that reach and don't reach. In the PS1 versions, you can't see how far an attack will reach or not, making the system feel really clunky. This is what the PSP version is for though. In the PSP version you can see each attack's radius and you can place your party accordingly. Beware though that if you get ambushed, your grid is also messed up, so you need to fix that in the battle, which the game thankfully allows. Additionally, this version has a skip function that skips persona animations and has an amazing auto battle system. You can choose to attack with your melee weapons, guns, and they will attack as long as you don't manually stop it. You can additionally set your auto actions and play them back, and it doesn't even reset in between fights. Or you can just replay whatever actions you did the last time when you manually chose the actions of your individual party members, and it doesn't overwrite once you use auto battle. All in all, you have 4 options of auto battle, with 2 of them being fully customizable. If you decide to get a demon on your side, it will give you a card of itself, which you are able to fuse with other cards to get different personas for each character. In this game, every party member has multiple personas opposed to the Persona 3 onwards. However, every character has affinities with personas of different arcanas, so keep that in mind. Once you get to the reception desk, you see a nurse stuck and unable to get out. You can either try to help her or leave her. It doesn't matter what you do, she dies anyways, and zombies attack you. Eriko comes to the rescue and is ecstatic of showing off her persona. After the battle she monologues and thinks that because she has Nike as a persona, that she is the party's guardian angel. She is embarrassed once the party tells her that everyone of the group can do it. Now once you get out, you see that the whole town is filled with monsters. That means you will get into a lot of random battles from here now. In the PS1 version, this is as far as I could go, because it is really difficult to navigate in this version, and the random encounters make it unbearable. Anyways, go to the SEBEC blockade to see a new scene with Reiji. After that, go to the Alaya shrine where you meet Maki's mother. You see another Philemon scene, then Mark and Nanjo leave on their own because they know that the company called SEBEC is responsible for everything. You alongside Yukiko and Eriko carry Maki's mom to the school to get her checked up. At this time you can either explore the school or head to the first floor to leave the school through the giant hole in the wall. Don't do this yet, because if you explore a specific room inside the gym, you'll find a room with a box. But once you enter the room, you go out instantly. This is important, so keep that in mind. But if you play the American PS1 version though, just forget it and leave through a giant hall. For everyone else, follow these steps. This is the part of the Snow Queen route. Go to room 2-4 and speak with the girl there. She tells you to talk to Devil Boy in the gym. Next to the drama club you see a familiar face if you played Shin Megami Tensei If. After talking to the drama club, go to the student council room in the 3rd floor. Next, go to the principal's office where you see the worst teacher ever. Just ignore him and talk to the principal. No, save and make a separate save. You now have the choice to open the box in the room next to the gym to initiate the Snow Queen route, or you can leave the school through the hole. If you try to do these steps in the American PS1 versions, it stops at Devil Boy, who doesn't talk about the Snow Queen quest at all, and just says what he would normally say if you didn't talk to the girl in room 2-4. Apparently there's a cheat code to skip this part and resume the steps normally, and you can actually start the route. The first few lines are translated but not the rest, which makes it obvious that it was cut because of time constraints. If you want to get Reiji, you can only get him in the SEBEC route where you just exit the school through the hole. To get him, simply reject everyone who wants to join you. That even includes Eriko, who you need to actively search for first. She's in the subway. Hidehiko is in the police station and he asks you to join alongside Mark. Say no. If at one point Ayase forced herself into the group, even though you said no, you messed up a step. If you did everything right, once you reject Ayase, she will leave and then you can play the game normally until you see Reiji again and he automatically joins you. Additionally, after the police station or when you start the Snow Queen route, you will unlock the Velvet Room. If you played the later Persona games, you should be well acquainted with this room. In here you can fuse Persona with the cards you received through negotiations. Also, you can take on already fused Persona or store them here. You can only carry around 3 Persona at a time, so this is really useful. Now you know most things that you need to know about to start this game. I once watched a review of this game and the person who reviewed it said that the main antagonist is kinda cliché. Which is actually ironic, because if you would have chosen Eriko instead of Brown, you would have seen that Eriko says this as well, which is just so funny. Anyways, with that said, everything I said about getting Reiji, forget it. Don't even bother with getting Reiji, because Eriko is obviously the best choice. This is a joke, by the way, choose whoever you want. Her deep admiration of the occult is just so endearing to watch, as the world around her is in such a messed up place while she is living her dream and making fourth wall breaking comments. The last thing I want to talk about is the main reason why I think people should experience this game. It's not because of the gameplay and characters, it is because of the philosophical themes of the story. Don't get me wrong, without the characters the game would be boring, but they also work so well because of the themes the story has. Philemon believes in the infinite potential of humankind, and you are playing a group of high school kids who are able to change their personas all the time. You are children who are growing and changing all the time, and if they don't change their personas to get stronger, you will game over all the time. You are quite literally forced to grow up and change personalities all the time, just how a child grows up and changes personalities as well. Nothing confirms that the party changes on a personal level more that you can miss out of each character's ultimate persona depending on what you do in the story. If kids grow up and keep messing up, it may be possible that they don't fully develop as people and such can't fully realize their maximum potential. The antagonist is proof of what happens to someone who grows up chasing twisted ideals and what happens once he achieves this goal. This will be a spoiler, so just skip this part if you don't want to know everything and experience this game for yourself, because this part specifically made me think a lot once I got to the part of the story. 3, 2, 1. Okay then. The antagonist achieves ultimate power to destroy the world, but gets defeated by the party before he can do that. Once they ask him why he didn't destroy the world immediately, he gives a piece of advice to the party. Never set your goals to things you can achieve, because once you are on top, once you achieve the purpose you've worked for your entire life, you lose the motivation to go on. You have an endless void inside of your heart. He wanted to destroy the world, but once he was able to do it, he saw no reason to do it, because it wouldn't mean anything to him, it wouldn't prove anything. This is not entirely the best way to think, but I believed him at first, because it made sense for me. This no longer is the case, because I figured out that the reason he gave up was not that he achieved his goal, but what his goal meant for everything. If you die before achieving your goal, you will have a void inside of your heart, and fulfilling your dream does so as well. So the question is everything pointless at the end? The answer is no. Remember when I said that Philemon believes in the infinite possibilities of the humankind? And then the antagonist chased the wrong ideals, a path where everything ends instead of a path that creates? A goal you cannot achieve, as well as setting a definitive end in your goals will leave a giant hole in your heart. You see what I'm hinting at here? Infinite possibilities means that if you go a path of total destruction, everything will end at the end. You can't destroy when there is nothing left to destroy. However, if you choose a path where you create and further humanity, you will hit your goal, but you will never hit a wall. There isn't a limit in improvement. Infinite possibilities. You made the world a better place, but it can be even better. You help the world in a way where people will remember you and respect everything you did for them. At the end you will die in a way where you can be proud of what you have achieved and what others will achieve in your place. A goal that ends with your death is not worth chasing, but a goal that ends with inspiring others is, because you always have something to work for, as well as the goal not ending with your death. Spoiler over. The Persona series had a heavy hitting start, and even though hardly anyone talks about Persona 1 and 2, there is still so much that is important in these games. I absolutely recommend the video series of Sneaky Slice, where he analyzed the entirety of Persona 1 and 2. It is really interesting, I promise you, so please check him out. I will link his video series in the description. For now, I will take a step back and will start on a new retrospective about a really stylish series. I hope I will see you there.